Good afternoon, everybody. I'm proud to be joined by Senator Kaine, Senator Baldwin, Senator Udall, because we were a little late, had another engagement. Oh, he's here. Good. Oh, he's here. And Senator Udall is here. Good. All right. Well, the past few weeks have highlighted the president's impulsive, erratic, egotistical, and often reckless foreign policy, the consequences of which have made America less safe and unnecessarily put our armed forces in harm's way. From North Korea to Syria to Russia, it's impossible to say the world's a safer place than before President Trump took office. In each of these, and you look, and we're worse off because of his intervention. North Korea has many more nuclear bombs and has ICBMs. Syria is a big mess since he withdrew, and every time he confronts Putin, he loses, and Putin cleans his clock. So it's no wonder that so many Americans are really worried about what he might do in Iran. It's clear that the mothers and fathers of America don't want another endless war in the Middle East, and yet the president could force us into one, or more likely, bumble into one, because strategy and the president don't seem to intersect. That's why I'm glad the Senate will soon consider Senator Kaine's war power resolution, which would prevent further escalation of hostilities with Iran. Here is the timetable on that. As you know, we had an awful briefing where it was thought by both Democrats and Republicans that at a very minimum, the leaders of the administration ducked the hard questions and, maybe worse, didn't answer them directly and in a way that was clear. And after that meeting, Senator Kaine sat down with Senators Paul and Lee, and they came up with a resolution which ripens Sunday, and we believe will get 51 votes that is needed to pass. And so we will work out the timing. We have to figure out how it intersects with impeachment, but we believe that this resolution is the right way to go. It has the support of all 47 Democrats, and I'll let Senator Kaine talk more about it soon. But this vote is crucial. It's what the Founding Fathers wanted. The power to make war should be with the Congress, not with the executive branch. And it's past time for Congress to put a check on any president, let alone an impulsive, erratic president who often seems to do foreign policy to satisfy the momentary needs of his ego rather than to have a long-term strategy. Now, also this week, the Senate will begin the third impeachment trial of a sitting president in our nation's history. Let's remember what this trial is for. For a president, any president, to threaten a foreign country with the cutoff of aid unless they interfere in our elections is what the Founding Fathers felt was one of the worst abuses a president could have. When I was in high school and learned about the Founding Fathers writing about foreign power interference in an election, I sort of shrugged my shoulders. I said, what the heck is that? Now we know. Now we know. Americans strongly believe that it's Americans who ought to determine who we elect, not some foreign power. Not some foreign power. So these charges are deep and serious, and all we can say is we join the American people in wanting the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, to come out of the trial. If you want the truth, you have to have witnesses. You have to have documents. Who has ever heard of a trial without witnesses and documents? I'm pleased that some of my Republican colleagues are now beginning to come around to our position. When I first wrote to Leader McConnell 3 weeks ago and asked him for witnesses and documents, he didn't pay much attention. His goal, in my judgment at that point, was simply to bring up a resolution and dismiss all the proceedings. But he couldn't do it because not only of what Nancy Pelosi did, but the weight of American opinion, that a dismissal without any documents or witnesses would not sit well with them. So, we're soon going to have an opportunity to see where my Republican colleagues really stand on the question of witnesses testifying and documents being added. The President and the American people deserve nothing less than a fair, full, and honest process. Senator Udall.
Thank you very much, Senator Schumer. And let me just touch on both of these subjects. First of all, it's been a real pleasure working with Senator Kaine and Senator Baldwin and many other Democratic senators on this issue of an unauthorized war with Iran. As many of you know, I introduced a bill to that, a bipartisan bill to that specific issue in 2018. I've introduced it again in 2019. It was co-sponsored by Senator Paul. We were able to amend the NDAA, or at least have a vote on it, on that specific amendment, which got the support of 51 senators at the time. The 4 Republican senators joined us, and we have built a momentum after that. What Senator Kaine is now doing with this War Powers resolution, I think continues to build. And I think he will talk about the support it has, but my sense of listening to Republican senators and talking to Republican senators are there are many after this recent incident that feel very antsy about the way the president is behaving in terms of war and his war powers and the kinds of statements he's made. So I think we're gaining support on this one. Let me just say on the issue of impeachment, for me, as a former trial lawyer, former attorney general, prosecutor, to me, a trial is about seeking the truth, trying to find the truth. And I don't know how, in a situation like we have now, very unlike President Clinton, when everybody had been deposed, the president had been deposed, we had depositions in a private setting, you had people appearing before a grand jury. We do not have that situation today. So I don't see how you find the truth in the areas where we don't know answers without calling witnesses like John Bolton, Mick Mulvaney, the acting chief of staff, and several of the other witnesses that were working under them there in the White House, and getting all the relevant documents. So I think also we're gaining momentum there. I think the American people want a fair, open trial, and I hope that we will move in that direction as we begin this later this week and then go into the trial actually on Tuesday. Thank you.
Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Leader, and I want to especially thank both Senators Kaine and Udall for their leadership in working to force a debate and a vote in Congress to prevent further escalations of hostilities in Iran. There are hard lessons that we should be learning when America chooses to go to war in the Middle East or elsewhere without a full public debate in the Congress of the United States. There is nothing more American than debate. And when it comes to something as serious as sending our troops to war, there must be a debate. We must have this debate. For years, many of us have been deeply concerned about the prospect of President Trump just stumbling into a war with Iran and making us less safe. After decades of U.S. military engagement in the Middle East, Congress must not allow this administration to repeat the mistakes of the past and go to war without the support of Congress and the American people. You know, the Constitution is so crystal clear on this matter. Only Congress has the authority to declare war. Senator Kaine's bipartisan War Powers resolution, which has already cleared the House of Representatives with bipartisan support, is simple. If the President wants to send more young men and women to war, we must first have a public debate in Congress and have a conversation with those we represent, the American people. President Trump's foreign policy, especially with regard to Iran, is a chaotic disaster that has not made us safer. And that's why I believe it is so important that we have this debate in Congress. We owe it to the service members, we owe it to the American people who are sick and tired of war in the Middle East, and we have a constitutional responsibility to prevent the President from going to war with Iran and sending more American troops into harm's way without congressional authorization. It's time for Congress to live up to this responsibility.
Senator Kaine.
Well, as my colleague said, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk briefly today, the framers gave to Congress the power, sole power, to declare war because they knew that it would be a safeguard against a rush. We don't want to rush. This should be the hardest decision we make. And because we're going to be ordering young men and women to risk their lives, we shouldn't do it unless we have the guts to have the debate and have the vote and say that a war is in the national interest. I introduced this bill originally on the 3rd of January. It's under a privileged proceeding that's only been used twice in the 45-year history of the War Powers Act. And what the privilege gives you is the ability to have a floor vote in a reasonable period of time on a simple majority, not filibusterable, not with the 60-vote threshold. In conversations, as Senator Schumer said, with Republican colleagues, especially after the briefing last week, they were discouraged that the attitude that was being communicated to us was that Congress is an annoyance. Why do you want to know? We don't have to tell you anything. You should be glad that we're here 6 days later to give you a few morsels of information. And so after that, they came to me, and we have been able to make some amendments that have earned the support first of Senators Lee and Paul, but now the support also of Senators Young and Collins, and there are a number of other Republicans who are looking at it as well. So we now have the 51 votes that we need for the version that's the bipartisan version. That doesn't mature till this weekend. It would first be available for consideration by the Senate next week. Senator Schumer and Senator McConnell are sort of talking through the timing of it. But the good news is this: we now have a majority of colleagues, Democratic and Republican, who will stand strong for the principle that we shouldn't be at war without a vote of Congress, and that's a very positive thing. And I'm going to keep working to get more beyond the 51 that have declared. I'm going to keep working to get more until we have this vote soon. Thanks.
Great. Questions?
Leader Schumer, how confident are you in Senator Collins sort of seeing her goal of meeting with other moderate Republicans to have witnesses in the trial come forward? I think some Democrats would argue, given Democrats false hope in the past. So how confident are you this time?
Look, the bottom line is that the American people are strongly for witnesses and documents. 64% of Republicans are. And that's what I think is importuning many Republicans to come forward. And I'm not going to comment on any one individual, but I think there's a whole bunch who are really seriously entertaining this.
Mitch McConnell, according to our reports, has spoken with his Republican Congress about the document, the resolution that stopped this trial. Have you seen the resolution
No.
yet, and are you on board with his proposed timeline?
No, I haven't seen the resolution, so can't be on board with anything yet.
Thanks, Leader. I know you have concerns about the Phase 1 trade deal the President's expected to sign tomorrow. Is it in your view in any way that you think the President is caving to Beijing?
Yes.
And why do you think he's perhaps settling to do Phase 1?
I think the Chinese are behind his back sort of laughing that they did so well. The issue, there are fundamental ways China takes advantage of America. Very few of those have been changed. And it seems instead the President has said, well, if you buy some soybeans, I'll back off. And the Chinese, there's no even real certainty or commitment that they will buy those soybeans. And furthermore, many of the Chinese companies and groups that have purchased soybeans have signed long-term contracts with Argentinian and Brazilian producers, so they don't need any more soybeans. And so the bottom line is that this first agreement, is a huge victory for the Chinese, and for all the tough talk that the President gave us on China, we've gotten very little in return when it comes to intellectual property, when it comes to people demanding joint agreements, when it comes to cyber theft, when it comes to government-subsidized businesses, the nub of our complaint. And it gives me very little confidence that if there is a round two before November of 2020, if after November 2020, I hope, pray, and believe that Trump won't be there, that it will be any better.
Was it right to drop China?
What specific qualities are you looking for in a House Impeachment Manager or skill set?
Well, I think, you know, I have great faith in Speaker Pelosi. She has tremendous, tremendous talent in her caucus, and she'll pick a good team.
North Korea, sir.
No, I'm going here.
North Korea. No. Recently, Kim Jong-un said that they not coming anymore to negotiation table with the United States.
Well, look, I think
But why President sent a letter to the Kim Jong-un all the time that he said that he has a good relationship with the North Korea. But it's different. It's, you know.
Well, I think that the president, if the president's behavior in North Korea has been a metaphor for his foreign policy in general, he's gotten taken to the cleaners. We're much worse off. He criticized President Obama, and we are much worse off today. And the president seems to have abandoned any real gains for a couple of photo ops, which were ephemeral and don't even benefit him. Taylor?
Do you have a sense, if your optimism about witnesses is correct, do you have a sense of whether or not McConnell will come to you and reopen negotiations?
Look, first, I can't predict whether we'll have witnesses or not. At first, everyone said no. McConnell seemed to rule the roost. Now we're having some people entertain it, but you don't know what's going to happen. So we're in better shape than we were a few weeks ago, but there's no certainties here at all. Whether he wants to, I asked him 4 times to sit down so we could negotiate witnesses and documents. He said no each time. I'm always open to talking to him. Thank you, everybody.